Hi, my name is Steve, and I had a hair transplant procedure with Dr. Hasson in 2022. We did 2,700 grafts, and I couldn't be more pleased with the result. I think my hair was always important to me, even from a young age and growing up. And I think it took a long time for me to realize that any hair loss was actually happening. And then I think once I did realize that hair loss was happening, there was a long period of denial that it wasn't happening. But eventually I concluded that, yes, I am losing my hair. Now the question is, what can be done about it? And at the time, I didn't know what could be done, in terms of the procedures available, modern day, and how good they look. So it was really a journey for me of doing research and discovering for myself that, wow, hair transplants in 2022 and in the modern era really are phenomenal, and you can come out with some really amazing results. Things that I never would have thought were possible 10, 20 years ago. So once I decided that yes, I am losing my hair, yes, I want to get a hair transplant, I started down the rabbit hole of learning about the different procedure types, FUT versus FUE, and then comparing those and looking at different surgeons, different clinics all around the world, and kind of seeing what was out there. Eventually, I discovered Hasson and Wong here in Vancouver, and the first thing that I really noticed was that the results just blew me away, if I'm being completely honest. So really, once I found this clinic, I don't think I really considered anybody else. I just knew that I wanted to do it right from the start, and I wanted the best results possible. And I'm happy to say that today, a year and a half later, that I think we achieved that, and I couldn't be happier with the end result. I really wanted a high density result, and that was primarily what I was finding with Dr. Hasson's post-op photos on their website. So that really, to me, kind of told me that this was the proper clinic for me and for what my desired outcome was, and also was really in line with my desire to get this done in one shot and not really have to worry about, is it going to need a touch-up, did we do all we could do, et cetera, et cetera. To be completely honest, I didn't do a whole lot of research when looking for the right clinic. I feel like I have a very discerning eye, and I know what I like, and I feel like I can spot quality really quickly. So once I had found Hasson and Wong, it was really clear to me that this was it. This was the right choice. I didn't really spend years sifting through different clinics. I never considered going really to a different continent, going to Turkey or anything like that. So I was really only looking at the top clinics to begin with. And once I found Hasson and Wong, I think the clear choice was obvious. Another consideration really in my research was I wasn't concerned about the overall price. I think for something this important, if you want it done right, then you get what you pay for. And I was reading a lot of cases where people had a transplant that they were unhappy with and ended up coming to Hasson and Wong for a second transplant, more so to repair what had been done the first time around, and ended up spending more money than if you had just come to Hasson and Wong the first time. So I wasn't really concerned about the price tag. I was more concerned about doing it right, the quality of the work, and getting it done properly the first time. I'm super pumped. I'm sure there's plenty of other clients out there that are as happy, I mean, I know there are, that are as happy with their result as I am. They're maybe just not as open to sharing it as I am. So if it sounds like I'm a shill, you know, I'm not, but it's the God's honest truth. So in terms of how my hair loss affected my daily life, I feel like for a long time it went unconscious. I wasn't really acutely aware of it, but I was just aware of the fact that something was off, something was not to my liking. I attributed it to getting older, you know, looking older, that sort of thing. You know, I started wearing hats, which I never wore hats my entire life, and all of a sudden now you see me with a hat on 99% of the time. And eventually I did realize that it was my thinning hair, which I never thought was possible, especially since, you know, in my family, there's not really a whole lot of hair loss. Once I realized that my hair was thinning and I decided to do something about it, everything changed. But prior to that, I thought it was, oh, I got a bad haircut. Oh, you know, this hair product isn't right for me. I'm getting older, I'm looking older, et cetera, et cetera. But now, you know, post-op, I feel, you know, 15 years younger, and I'm so happy with the way it turned out. You know, one thing that I've noticed after having my procedure is that not only do I feel younger, and not only do I think I look younger, I get mistaken by other people for someone who's 5 to 10 years younger than I actually am. Whereas, you know, before surgery, that never really happened. You know, I think I looked maybe closer to my age. In fact, I probably looked a little older than I really was. Whereas I'm much happier today being mistaken for a younger man. When I first met Dr. Hasson, honestly, he wasn't quite what I expected. A lot of highly skilled surgeons tend to be, you know, very cerebral and maybe have a hard time interacting with their patients. But when I met Dr. Hasson, I felt comfortable right away. He, you know, comes across as a man's man, and I felt his confidence immediately. So I knew right from the moment I walked into the clinic that I was in great hands. And that pre-op consultation that we had, we spent a lot of time discussing my hairline, creating, you know, an appropriate hairline, what would be the most aesthetically pleasing. And it was something that Dr. Hasson took very seriously, and that he took my considerations in when creating, you know, the final shape of the hairline, which I was really happy about. And obviously, you know, I think it turned out great, you know, in retrospect. You know, Dr. Hasson communicated to me that he believed that the restructuring of the hairline is the most important part of the day. And it wasn't really like something where he just kind of took out his Sharpie and drew it on and that was that. Now, there was a lot of, you know, erasing, redrawing, reconfiguring, and making, you know, tiny little adjustments until we found a shape that we were both happy with pre-op, prior to surgery. Once the hairline was decided, the rest of the day, you know, was a fairly easy experience, for lack of a better term. You know, we went into the extraction procedure, didn't really feel anything, wasn't really uncomfortable in any way. Then after that, there was, you know, the incision portion of the day where, you know, Dr. Hasson is literally making every incision for every graft that, you know, appears in the transplant. And then once that is completed, it's transplantation time. So, I mean, I think I walked out of here 8 hours after I walked in, and I was back to work 48 hours post-op. So it really was a fairly non-invasive procedure. And I didn't really have a hard time healing or really didn't have a bad experience whatsoever post-op. In terms of the entire post-op recovery, obviously right away you're excited because even though your head's shaved, you can see the framing, you can see what your new hairline will look like. And then after a few weeks comes what everybody has dubbed the ugly duckling phase, where most, if not all, of the transplanted hairs fall out, and you're left with just the hair that you had prior to your transplant. And during this stage, a lot of guys are, very worried. Did it take? Am I losing my hair? I look just like I did before. And that can be kind of a scary time for most people. But if you know what to expect going into it, it shouldn't be a scary time. And actually, my timeline lined up exactly with what Dr. Hasson said it was going to be. So it was almost like down to the day that everything happened for me. And then I think it was really around month 4 where things started to kick into high gear, the hair starts to regrow, and you're really starting to see what it's gonna look like, long term. And then month 5, month 6, every month, it's getting better and better, it's getting thicker and thicker and longer, obviously, so you can start to maybe style it, in the way that you would have before. And it's really exciting because, now you've got a brand new hairline and it just keeps improving. And I remember actually, this was in October, so this was 7 months post-op. And I was on a trip for my buddy's bachelor party, and I walked up to the bar, and there was a man sitting at the bar alone. Looked like a really cool guy. He was probably in his 60s, and he just out of the blue just commented, "Man, your hair looks really good. What kind of hair product do you use?" And so I told him how much I liked it, and then we were talking, and I said, "Well, actually, I just recently had a hair transplant." And I pulled out my phone and I showed him a bunch of pictures of what I looked like before, and he couldn't believe it. So for someone that I'd never spoken to out of the blue, first thing out of their mouth to say, "Your hair looks great, what are you doing?" To me, really validated, how I was feeling about my hair, and that was that it looked so great. I mean, even better than it did before, and probably even better than it did, maybe even when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. And then from there, every month, things just start improving more and more. I was very diligent about taking a photo on the same day every month so that I could just compare my own progress. And when I didn't think it could get any better, it really just kept improving. And I remember at multiple points saying, gosh, if it doesn't get any better than this, I'm already happy because it looks so much better than it did pre-op. But it just continued to improve and improve until here we are today, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. So one thing that was surprising in the whole post-op recovery journey was the saline aspect of surgery. So saline is used to expand your skin so that the incisions can be made and the hairs can be packed as densely as possible. But it does take a few days for that saline to be processed by your lymphatic system. And as it drains down your face, you do experience some swelling. I definitely looked a little bit like a freak for a few days, but it wasn't painful. And I don't think anybody who doesn't know me that well really noticed. But it is something, to keep in mind. For a few days, you'll have a little bit of fun, pushing the saline around your own skull until it eventually gets all filtered out, which usually happens, I think it happened in my case, like 2 to 3 days after the procedure. All in all, deciding to get a hair transplant was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, hands down. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't look in the mirror, that I don't style my hair, that I don't feel 1,000 times more confident and happier with my appearance than I did pre-op. And that sort of feeling really has trickled down into all aspects of my life at this point. What I would say to anyone out there considering a hair transplant is that definitely, if you're on the fence, do it. There hasn't been anything else that I've done that's improved my quality of life this much that I can think of. So, I mean, if I had to do it, I'd do it 1,000 times over again. And I tell everyone I meet, you know, you don't have to be bald in 2023. Baldness is a choice at this point.